Today, we are going to be covering the fall and eventual rise of Luton Town. From the top flight in England to not even professional leagues and back up again, Luton Town has been through it all. So without further ado, let's get into it. Luton Town's story begins at the end of the 91-92 season, where they were relegated from the top division in England, and this was obviously before it was called the Premier League. And eventually, through just not performing and financial troubles and a lot of things that didn't obviously go Luton's way, they found their way in the third tier 4 years after this relegation. Luton eventually stayed in this third tier until they were relegated again at the end of the 2000-2001 season. Things then began to look up for Luton as, under the management of Joe Kinnear, who had arrived halfway through the previous season, he won the team promotion from the fourth tier, which is now known as League 2 in England, to the third tier, which is now known as League 1. The owner at the time, though, John Gurney, unsettled the club in 2003, and in doing so, he terminated Kinnear's contract upon his arrival in May, and he replaced Kinnear, who had brought Luton success that they had not felt in a while at this point, obviously from 1992 to 2001, so what is that, 9 years? He had replaced the success that he had been given with Mike Newell before he left Luton as the club entered administration, which basically means he just left them for dead, and a bunch of financial instability and stuff occurred within Luton, which kind of dropped them down and makes the story of theirs even more incredible. Newell did not last long at the club, though, as he was first taken place by Kevin Blackwell as manager, and then later former player Mick Harford. The team was then relegated twice in a row, starting in 2006-2007, and spent the latter part of the 2007-2008 season in administration, as we previously established, and this then led to a 10-point deduction from that season's total. Pretty self-explanatory, not doing all the money stuff, 10 points deducted. The club then had a total of 30 points docked from it in its 2008-2009 season by the Football Association and the Football League for financial irregularities dating back several years. So, basically, the football administration within England basically had enough of Luton's instability when it came to financial stuff and docked them a bunch of points to screw over a lot of their seasons, and led to even more relegations than Luton probably would have gotten if they had just had the money, which the owner did not leave them. These deductions that Luton sustained proved to be too large of an obstacle to overcome in their normal league, but Luton came from behind in the final of the Football League trophy to win the competition for the very first time, which was a huge turning point for Luton, as we said, they've been relegated from the top flight in England all the way to not even professional leagues, and now they're starting to win some stuff under new management, and things are looking up, but still this is very far from what Luton eventually went on to achieve, which we're about to get into within the next segment. Relegation meant that in the 2009-2010 season, Luton were playing in the Conference Premier, a competition in which the club had never before participated. The club unsuccessfully contested the promotion playoffs 3 times in 4 seasons during their time as a non-league club, employing 5 different managers within this time period. So within this time period, Luton tried getting promoted. They were doing decent, but they could just never find that final piece that allowed them to become a professional team again, which is wild now to think of what Luton have accomplished and now being a Premier League club, which, kind of shows you anything can happen within this beautiful sport that we all love. In the 2012-2013 FA Cup fourth round, though, Luton won their away tie against Premier League club Norwich 1-0, and in doing so became the first non-league team ever to beat a side from England's top flight since 1989. This is obviously, as I said, another huge thing for Luton, as you're a non-league side. No one's expecting you to do anything, and then you go on to beat one of the top teams in England. Granted, Norwich isn't one of the greatest teams in the world, not having anything against them, but still, from Luton's perspective, this was a huge win that also was a big turning point within Luton's, how everything's going. And I'm going to be saying that a lot, but, it truly is, everything that happened just bit by bit, everything's building up to what they've accomplished. The 2013-14 season, though, under the management of John Still, Luton won the Conference Premier League title with 3 games to spare, therefore securing promotion to League Two in the 2014-15 season. And by the 2016-17 season, they eventually made it to the playoffs, with the promotion playoffs, where they were unfortunately beaten 6-5 on aggregate by Blackpool in the semi-final. But this was still huge as they're returning back to what they were. And it doesn't really matter, as next season they were promoted back to League One as runners-up. And Luton achieved their second successive promotion in 2018-19 after they won the League One title, marking the club's return to the Championship after a 12-year absence. That alone is an insane thing to purely think about, as you've gone from the bottom, like all the way from the bottom, to not even professional, like licensed games, to like the Championship. Granted, it's still one step away from the Prem, but that one step is still like, in terms of thinking of what Luton have achieved thus far, this was it isn't looking it wasn't looking as distant as a dream as it once was compared to the beginning of the 2010s for them. 3 years later, though, in the 21-22 season, Luton reached the Championship playoffs, where they were beaten 2-1 on aggregate by Huddersfield Town in the semi-final. But at the end of the 22-23 season, Luton Town secured a consecutive place in the Championship playoffs, having finished in third. Luton Town beat Sunderland 3-2 on aggregate in the playoff semi-finals to reach the playoff final against Coventry City. This was a huge point in Luton's thing, as you went all the way down from the top flight to not even professional. No one thinks you're going to get back there. No one in their right mind would even suggest that you get back there. And then you just go and get back there because why not? And now you're just one game away from securing Premier League promotion. And this was a huge game, and we're going to go over this game within detail. So, without further ado, let's get into this huge affair. You could see that Luton wanted this game. Every single chance that they got, they were pressing high and attacking to all of their capabilities. They wanted this win. They needed promotion to the Prem. You could see that every player in this team was playing with everything on their line. They were putting everything, mind, body, everything. They gave all that they had to going into getting this promotion for this team, and it eventually paid off. And that it did. In the 23rd minute, Adebayo made a beautiful run to get past the Coventry defense, and then passed it back, cut it back beautifully for Jordan Clark, who just slotted it into the back of the net, sending the keeper the wrong way. This was a storytell beginning to how the game wanted to go for Luton, and it would stay this way for a while. And not much could be done, as Luton were just playing beautifully. We're eventually cut short, though, as in the 66th minute, Gustavo Hammer scored the equalizer for Coventry, which sent the match into extra time. At this point, Luton fans started to doubt whether they would get promoted, but as we would come to learn, they wouldn't have to doubt for too long. Only another about 60 minutes or so. Then, in the 115th minute, a mishap by a Coventry defender led to Joe Taylor being able to take the ball away from him and score the winning goal past Coventry to send Luton into the Premier League. Eventually, though, upon VAR review, this goal was ruled out for a handball, leaving Luton Town diminished. All their hope was seemingly evaporated, and everyone was feeling down, as they knew the match would have to go to penalties and would have to rely on their penalty takers and keepers to keep them alive and keep their promotion hopes alive as well. The match was then sent into penalties, and every player on each team had scored their penalties. Then it came up to penalty number 7, and Luton Town had buried theirs. Coventry's taker came up, and upon shooting, he missed the entire goal, sending Luton into the Premier League for the first time since 1992. This was a huge and historic moment in Luton's history it'll go down in history books forever, from when Luton went all the way down, all the way back up, and just amazing story. Obviously, my regards go out to the man on Coventry who missed the penalty, as this is heartbreaking, basically eliminating your team from going to the biggest stage in the sport that it has to offer. But what a story from Luton. it was beautiful all around. And not to forget that one of their players, I forget his name, I'll put it up on the screen now, and a picture of him. He stuck with them for the entire time when they were in the non-league, all the way up to now getting promoted. So huge congrats to him. And also, there's gonna have to be like a bunch of renovations for their stadium. I think they said it's gonna be like 10 million pounds, I think, around there, that they said, to get the stadium renovated. But congrats to them, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and goodbye.